Welcome to our Acting Mayor, Councillor Gates, Visiting Councillor Ryan Baldwin Lumsden, and to a full complement of member councillors. The agenda, and there's no apologies, no leave of absence. If confirmation of minutes, if we could have someone confirm the minutes from the previous meeting, confirmed by Councillor Peter Young and seconded by Councillor Darren Taylor. All those in favour? That's carried. We've got, is there any conflict of interest declarations for this morning's meeting? Doesn't appear to be. Thank you. We've got two starred items, 5.1 and 6.1. Did anyone want to star either of those? No? If we could have a mover for... Yeah, moved by Councillor Peter Young, seconded by Councillor Darren Taylor. All those in favour? That's carried. And then our last agenda item there this morning is in closed session, and that's a Gold Coast Ferry trial report, and that's enclosed for...
The reason, Chair, is that it relates to an existing contract.
Thank you. Yeah. If someone could move us into closed, that's... Yes. Moved by Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Brooke Patterson. All those in favour? That's carried. If we could have the streaming off. Thank you. We've had a great report on the Gold Coast Ferry trial there, and lots of healthy debate and suggestions going forward. I could go to Councillor Vorster. Did you want to speak to this before we take it to the vote?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. I'll speak very briefly because, of course, we are dealing with a closed matter which deals with an existing contract. But I think it's important to note that the ferry service, the ferry trial that's been running on the Gold Coast, has been warmly received not only by locals and visitors. And I think that as a council, we're keen to ensure that a ferry service remains part of our transport and tourism mix here in the city. And in order to support the delivery or the continuation of that service, as a committee and hopefully as a council, we'd like to ensure that that service is properly integrated into our broader public transport network and leverages the opportunities that come from being on the doorstep of high-frequency bus services and our tram service, and that we ensure that customers, people using the service, are empowered to pass judgment and promote that service as a good feedback mechanism to ensure that a ferry service lives up to the high customer service experience expectations that people have. Siri could even be integrated into the service, which would be great to see. But I think if this is carried today, it would signal to the market that as a committee and possibly as a council, we have an appetite to see the service do more. And it will do more if it connects more communities to the balance of the city, moving to the north, the south and the west. And we're eager for that to happen.
Thanks, Councillor Vorster. So we'll take that to the vote. That'll be moved by Councillor Vorster.
Sorry, Madam Chair, can I speak to that briefly?
Yes.
Thank you. Just for those tuning in at home, I just wanted to speak briefly to this motion because it's very good that Councillor Vorster has adopted my suggested 4C there in relation to network expansion, because there's been a lot of community interest in relation to the trial, and I know that in the northern part of our city, from Labrador, Bigger Waters, Holywell and Paradise Point, for example, they've seen the ferry trial occurring and are interested in those services expanding into the north. So we've been keeping a close eye on how it's been going. If it's going to be an integral and meaningful part of the transport network or the tourism network into the future, it's got to go beyond the Golden Triangle of Appel Park, Hotter and Broadwater Parklands. And I look forward to future reports actually contemplating how we can meaningfully expand the service levels, both in terms of the timing and also the locations for travel. So I welcome Councillor Vorster's motion, and that's why I'm very happy to speak in favour of it, because I think Gold Coasters always say, you know, we've got all of that water, why aren't we using it? In time, there will probably be a report that's more open and available for the public to understand some of the behind-the-scenes limitations and difficulties, but I think this is a very positive step forward, so I welcome this motion. I hope it earns the support of the committee today.
Thanks very much, Councillor Caldwell. So, Sandy, that's moved by Councillor Vorster, seconded by myself, and we'll put that to the vote now. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. And Councillor Vorster, thank you for that number 4 there. That's certainly supported all the debate this morning. Is there any other general business today? Councillor Gates, I'll go to you.
Thank you very much. This week, Councillor Owen Jones and I had cause to meet with the Rotary Club of Coomera Valley. We have a cenotaph in the middle of the Tamborine Oxenford Road, and it appears that there have been negotiations going on with the Department of Transport and Main Roads about the possible relocation of that cenotaph. There was a suggestion put forward to us about a preference of the Rotary Club of Coomera Valley, And what I would like to do, having discussed it with Councillor Owen-Jones this morning, is move a general business item suggesting that officers review potential locations for the cenotaph and the suitability of land being suggested by TMR for relocation. And a number 2, that the Mayor writes to Minister Bailey, highlighting the importance of the monument and community sensitivity to its relocation. It's a really difficult thing. The cenotaph has been almost, well, right on the Tamborine-Oxenford Road, and it is the location for the largest Northern Gold Coast gathering on Anzac Day every year. The growth in the area has meant that there needs to be traffic signals installed at the intersection of the Tamborine-Oxenford Road and Charlie's Crossing Road, and TMR has allocated the funding for the design of those lights, which will entail the relocation of the cenotaph. So there have been a couple of parcels of land suggested, one being the peninsula and the other being parkland on the, is it the southern or western? Western side of the Tamborine-Oxenford Road. And if our people could have a look at both of those sites. There is no road access to the land on the peninsula, but our understanding is that the Department of Main Roads have suggested they would be willing to provide road access left in, left out, and car parking spaces on that parcel of land. The other land is accessible through the Oxenford Pony Club land, and of course the Oxenford Pony Club is to be relocated within the next 12 months, and I think we might do something at your committee, Councillor Vorster, this afternoon about getting some feedback on where we're at with that, because this all ties into this issue that we're faced with, and it's all just due to growth. And of course the issue with the Pony Club was the erosion of the river, which also is mentioned in Councillor Owen-Jones' agenda this week as something we're still looking at doing, which I don't think we are looking at doing anymore. So there's a few things all tied into this that we need to discuss, and I'll just come over and give...
And I'll second that, and while Councillor Gates is doing that, just so that Councillor Caldwell doesn't feel left out, the cenotaph was recently addressed through your committee in regards to the heritage plan. So,
which is why shortly I'll speak to this motion.
Yeah.
So the challenge we have is this is probably also cross-directoral. So you may need to speak to Alison, our Director Alison Ewens, regarding it. Some of the community suggestions as to where the cenotaph may be able to be located may not work. And I think there was an email from TMR that came to my office that went through to Councillor Gates's office where they were seeking some feedback. So this report, in my mind, may help inform that feedback to the TMR, who are the lead agency in regards to it. And clearly, because the cenotaph sits in their road reserve, they're going to need to be mindful of the costs that they'll have to bear in terms of making sure that it's appropriately moved.
Thanks, Councillor Owen-Jones. I'll go to Councillor Young while Councillor Gates is here.
Thank you, Chair. I just had a question as to what the reference is to the peninsula, and so Councillor Gates may be able to answer that, or Councillor
Owen-Jones.
So there was so where the sand mining used to happen near Seagull Lagoon. So the strip of land that connects through to the old Tamborine Road Weir connection. So
on the west of the bridge.
The peninsula is on the eastern side of the John Muntz Bridge.
Right.
So on the other side of the road to the Oxenford Pony Club.
which is private land?
Owned by the city, so owned and maintained by the city, but with only a service gate access, and it's on a curve, so it's actually could present some difficulties in regards to accessing it. And I'm assuming that if TMR were to relocate the cenotaph as part of an intersection upgrade for Charlie's Crossing Road, they would actually need to be thinking about not one but two intersections if they were to use the peninsula or not. So I personally have issues whether or not it's doable.
Now, you're all done, Councillor Young? Yes, thank you. I'll go to Councillor Caldwell.
Well, I mean, my threshold question is, do we want it to move at all? And I don't know whether the Councillor Gates and Councillor Owen-Jones have contemplated that.
So I'll have a go first. So it's actually dangerous. So it's in the road reserve. There is actually access issues both into and out of Charlie's Crossing Road, and that's been the case for several years now. There's about 15,000 car movements, and there's a long-standing duplication project that TMR have had on the books since the retirement village and the recent unit development on the corner. So it's a long time coming, but having a cenotaph in that close proximity to a lot of moving vehicles isn't necessarily ideal for its safety in the long term either.
So if I can chip in, it's not something that I would have proposed, and I'm sure Councillor Owen-Jones would not have proposed because of the sensitivity around it. But the fact is it's been brought to a head by Transport and Main Roads wishing to install traffic signals, and I have to say that many requests have gone forward for consideration because of the issues that arise at that location. So they've responded well, and there has always been in other development approvals that have been granted a requirement that there is land available for the duplication of that section of road. So it's not a surprise that it's on the books for consideration right now, because the difficulty of installing the signals with it in its current location are obviously great. And so whilst this is a response to actions by the state government through Transport and Main Roads, I think it's important that we get the right feedback from our officers so that our input is relevant and right when we are asked for a contribution. And it will happen that council will be involved in this relocation.
So has there been any high level of assessments done by the traffic officers or transport officers about the design of that intersection? Because, I mean, there's no growth down Charlie's Crossing Road, unless I'm missing something. The growth is in the east-west carriage of traffic flow. So why would we even need to signalise that intersection, for example? Would there be some alternatives that don't require signalisation?
I can answer that. We have community facilities at the end of Charlie's Crossing Road, and there has been an approval within the last 12 months. You might remember the Newman service station that was approved at just a little bit to the west. Freedom Service Station.
Yeah, but it's on the northern side of the road.
It is, but the whole congestion that's occurred, Main Roads were the what do you call it? The referral agents for that, because the Tamborine Oxenford Road is theirs, and they didn't have an issue with it. But there's no right turn out of the service station, so cars come down and now they do a U-turn at Charlie's Crossing Road. It's an absolute nightmare. The safety on that road has really deteriorated, I think you would agree, over recent years. And for people getting in and out of Charlie's Crossing Road, it's almost impossible. It's terrible. And, you know, it doesn't really matter if it's 10 people or 100 people, their safety is paramount. So it's something that Main Roads has investigated and decided has to be done. And it's not easy for them to take that decision. They don't have huge dollars to spend around. So quite clearly the safety concerns and the monument at that location compromise the road users.
Thanks, councillor Gates. I'll go to Mr Tilley.
Through you, Madam Chair, just to compliment what Councillor Gates has said then, we did some assessment on this intersection a few months ago on the basis of some of the customer feedback we received from constituents, and our assessment showed that it's over capacity. The right turn out of Charlie's Crossing Road is under a whole lot of stress because of turning vehicles, dropping kids at the bus stops to go up the mountain as well for school. So there's an awkward mix of kids crossing the road from the northern side to the southern side to go up the mountain on the bus. Main roads that originally intended on, can I say, cleaning up the parking on the northern side of the road. When we presented them the evidence of the broader intersection performance, including safety for vulnerable road users, that quickly evolved into a whole of intersection upgrade design process.
And can I say thank you to the officers for their work in that space, because it's obvious what has led to this latest consequence.
Thanks, councillor Gates. I'll go to councillor Owen-Jones.
And can I just say also, as the former representative of the area, so where the Charm Tie is actually partly constructed in the road reserve as well, and likewise the awning for the old original bakery is also constructed in the road reserve, and all of the parking that is adjacent to that is also, and provides for those business areas, is also in that road reserve. So it's actually frightfully difficult. I think that in hindsight, TMR in providing conditions for the Freedom fuel station there could have been maybe a little bit more aggressive in the conditions that they provided. And I think, as we know, when TMR are a referral agency and provide us with the conditions, we can't do anything other than accept them for what they are. So I think we're now in the unfortunate position of a much-loved memorial being threatened by roadworks, and us needing to make sure that the community is engaged as part of that process, and that we actually get some really good outcomes rather than bad outcomes.
Thanks, councillor Owen-Jones. Councillor Gates, did you want to close at all?
No, satisfied with that. Thank you.
Okay. Councillors, we've got a motion up there on the screens, moved by councillor Gates, second by councillor Owen-Jones. All those in favour? That's carried. That's supported unanimously. Thanks for bringing that forward, Acting Mayor. And if there's no other...
Just a question.
Yes.
If I could. I've just spilt water, but I'm not going to cry over it. Madam Chair, through you to the Director, I just wonder whether you may be able to follow up with your departmental counterparts on the issue of beehives in state-controlled road corridors. Now, I know the city has attempted to support local apiarists. No, it's okay.
It's a race to tell on.
It's not that I'm not interested. I had a 10 o'clock appointment. It's not a race.
Madam... Now we're losing our...
There's no race to be had. I do what I have to do.
Thanks, Madam Chair. So, so the city has attempted to support local apiarists with, I think, grants even, to get beehives into backyards. But I'm led to believe that some of the biggest barriers to a thriving native bee population is the amount of land clearing that's occurring. And not that that's necessarily got to stop, but if we can create other opportunities for native beehives to be established in the city, then perhaps we can offset some of those losses. Now, when I've researched this topic, it appears as though the Department of Transport and Main Roads actually have a policy and framework around giving the public access to effectively free land along their state-controlled road corridor for the placement of beehives. Now, there are some caveats on what constitutes a suitable location or not, and what I'd really be interested to know is whether, if you can seek this information from the department, whether there have been any permits issued here on the Gold Coast. If so, in which areas? And if not, whether that is because there are no suitable state-controlled road corridors where these hives can be located. If there are places that are going underutilised, I think there's a real role for us to maybe shed some light on these opportunities and perhaps encourage locals to establish their beehives in road corridors, particularly in areas like the Coomera Connector, for example, where there might be some clearing that may displace some local native bees. Perhaps supporting their reintroduction with hives may be a good way of offsetting those environmental costs. So, yeah, if you can just maybe reach out to the department, I'd be interested to see whether we can create some environmental upside in the face of development and transport infrastructure delivery.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'll talk to the regional director and we'll come back with an answer to you, Councillor Vorster.
And in the meantime, I'll beehive.
If there's, yeah, thanks, honey. If there's no other, if there's no other general business items, councillors, meeting closed at 10:07. Thank you.